Now, if you've been around these parts for a while, you might remember, and we have to cast our mind all the way back to about the tail end of February, when I decided I was going to try and grow my earliest ever early potatoes. It was a little bit of a gamble. I'd done it the year before, but this year I went even earlier. I remember like 3 weeks earlier than I had the previous year, taking a bit of a gamble. Now I'm a little bit, I don't know, 50-50 as to whether it's going to have worked out or not. Now this started off, and I've got the two buckets, so we did them in the buckets down here, and it started off really well. I had them in the greenhouse to begin with. They went in the polytunnel for a bit. They were doing absolutely smashing. Then they live out here. The potatoes and the buckets generally live out here alongside the polytunnel there, and that bit of gap where they live, and they were okay. They were doing really, really well. Then a little while ago, maybe it's about a month to 6 weeks ago, we had some really, really cold, just a couple of nights, the temperatures dipped right down and they got destroyed. The shores just got frost on them and they died. I thought they might recover. They didn't really recover very well. I haven't seen any flowers on them. I mean, all the shores have died back now. Whether that is just natural, that it was its time, because I was expecting around about this sort of time to be harvesting them, whether it's the frost that's done them in and they've died on the back of that. But I bet the question is, did they have enough time before that really cold, before that frost hit them, to grow some decent potatoes in there or not? And I guess there's only one way to find out, and we'll have a look. And I've got myself sort of partly set up here, and I'll just chuck my gloves on for this. And it's baking hot today. It is a beautiful day, so I've got my hat on, because those of us who are ever so slightly follically challenged need to be a little bit careful. Now, I can't off the top of my head remember the variety, but I will look it up. I will check it before the end of this video. I'll have gone off and checked it, and I'll come back and I'll tell you what variety they are, because I haven't, for some reason. There's no label in the pot, and I was doing so well this year at labelling things and looking after them. But alas, apparently the earliest ever earlies, that might or might not be, we will find out. And I can see a couple, actually, straight away off the bat. I can see a couple on the side of the bucket there. And the good thing about these buckets is the compost just gets reused. There's a few weeds in the bottom there. Just gets reused year after year after year. And there's worms in the bottom, and there's a couple of there's the start. You can see we've got a couple of tiny little ones. And you know what? If it turns out that we've just got tiny little potatoes, then so be it. It's a bit of fun. And there's the original squidgy, squashy, messy, horrible seed potato. But I tell you what, look, that's what's starting to come out, and it's not too bad. I should have brought a tray to put them in, but tell you what, we'll put them in the original bucket there that they've just come out of, just for somewhere to store them. And they're getting, you know what? If I keep getting them like that, I'll be all right. I mean, I'd like the volume because of the size of them not being massive, shall we say. There's the other seed potato there. I would like the volume to perhaps just increase a little bit. But if I get enough out of these buckets for a couple of meals, and doing this, I guess, like I was saying before, it was a bit of an experiment, and you can see them coming out there. I mean, I'd say they're about golf ball sort of size, to give you some sort of reference there. But we do need to increase the volume, and as I'm digging in, there's more coming out. And I would say early indications are from one bucket, from the first bucket, we've maybe got enough for one meal, which isn't the best return on investment of potatoes that I've ever had. But then again, the only thing I've spent money on here was a bit of fertilizer into the compost. Like I say, I reuse the compost, the same compost every year. Every time we do the buckets, it's the same compost getting reused time and time again. Add a bit of fertilizer in there. So in terms of cost, it was just really The only cost was the seed potatoes that I've used, and I don't think they were expensive. Like I say, I don't remember the variety, but I don't think I got them from anywhere fancy this time. I think they might have just been sort of B&M or somewhere like that, or somewhere in passing when I saw them quite cheap. So let me try. I'll try and show you this. This is the. I'll show you all these at the end. We'll do the bucket, and we'll come over and we'll have a look at the end as to how they're going to look in a proper tray, show you how they look. But I would say there's not the biggest. Use maybe a meal for two with new potatoes alongside it. Probably just about enough for that. But let me get this mess tidied up. We'll empty the second bucket and we'll see if that's looking any good or not. So bucket number one, done and dusted. Onto bucket number two. And I guess the question is it going to be as much as an anticlimax? It is. Oh my days, it is full of woodlice down the side there. So I don't know if woodlice eat potatoes or not, but they're certainly in the bucket here, and there's quite a lot of them. But there is some potatoes there again, undamaged sort of potatoes that are starting to come out. All the woodlice are around one of the potatoes on the side there. I'm hoping they're not in there damaging it, and these are maybe a tiny little bit bigger than the ones we were getting out of the other bucket. And I mean tiny, I mean not sort of like wow significantly sort of bigger. There's a few small ones there. There's the seed potato there. Actually, we'll just get rid of that down the side there, my pile of weeds, just so we can dispose of it properly. And again, there's a few coming out. I think I'm slowly starting to think that this is going to be very, very similar to the last one. Has anybody ever had woodlice in their potatoes before? It's not something I've ever seen. I've had ants in the potatoes before. I've had slugs in the potatoes before. I've had all sorts of stuff in the potato buckets before, but I've never knowingly, and there's another seed potato, never knowingly had woodlice in the potatoes before. And this is the little potato they were all on, and it's entirely undamaged. It's absolutely fine. So they're just living in the bucket, and that's a lot of people panic when you get like beasties and bugs and things like that and that. But it's just woodlice. They're not doing any harm to what I'm actually growing. They're just existing naturally where they live. So there was no major panic there about woodlice in the potatoes. Oh my God, never had them before, never seen them before. But from what I can see, absolutely nothing to worry about. The potatoes are all in good nick. They've not been damaged. There's no holes in them. There's nothing been nibbling at them. The woodlice are just living their best. Well, they were living their best life in the potato bucket. They're probably not living their best life quite so much anymore now that I've been in and about and destroyed all the compost. But I will relocate the compost back into the bucket, and the woodlice can carry on living in there, happy as they can be. And I think that is all the potatoes out of that one, and that really didn't take very long at all. Very similar again. You might be able to see there. I've got a tray over there. We'll put them in the tray. We'll have a proper look. It's looking much of a muchness to the other one, which is decidedly average. But I'll come back to you in just a jiffy and we'll have a proper look at the results. So the moment you've all been waiting for. Were the earliest ever earlies a success, or were they a flop? Well, they're somewhere in the middle. Let me show you the results. And I mentioned before the varieties. So these are Rocket. That's the variety that I put in. Picked Rocket because Rocket by name, Rocket by nature. They're supposed to grow really, really quickly, sort of within 12 weeks. And they're okay. There's enough there for a couple of meals for a couple of people. They're about the biggest ones, again, about golf ball sort of size. You know, there's a lot that are a bit smaller. They're okay. They'll do. I guess the one thing is I wish they hadn't got hit by that frost. And I guess that's the risk, isn't it? That's the risk of doing them so early in the game that we play, to try and beat the weather And if I'd been on the ball, right, if I'd been on the ball, if I'd thought about it at the time, I've no idea why I didn't think about it at the time, but because they're in the buckets, one of the whole reasons for doing them in the buckets is I could have lifted them from there, from outside the polytunnel to inside the polytunnel, chucked a bit of fleece on top of them, and they would have been fine. They would have been absolutely dandy, but I didn't, and they suffered because of that. So they've probably missed out on a good sort of 3 to 4 weeks of growing time, and on a potato that only takes 12 weeks to mature, that's a pretty big chunk of time. So I reckon some of these golf ball sized ones, some of the ones that are a bit smaller, if they'd been in for those extra sort of 3 to 4 weeks, they would have put on a lot more sort of weight, a lot more mass. They'd have been a lot bigger, a lot chunkier, and we would have got results that were more like the results we got last year when the harvest was absolutely marvellous. However, it was a bit of fun. It was a bit of an experiment. We tried it out. Lesson learned for next year. Keep more of an eye on the frost coming. Don't be so absent-minded or lazy and forget to move them into the polytunnel when they need to go in there for a bit of extra protection. But anyway, that is the experiment over and done with for this year. I'm sure we'll be back for next year to do another one with the potatoes and see what mess we can make of them then as well. Anyway, that is me done for today. Thank you very much for watching, folks, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye for now.